guys, I'm Drago, and I have had a lot of comments asking for some Poppy Playtime content. Well, today's your lucky day. You see, I hosted a contest on my Discord server where members could submit a sketch for me to finish for a video. Basically a collaboration contest. And in the end, this is the entry that I chose. A really cool pose for Pianosaurus from Poppy Playtime. Now, I don't know much about Poppy Playtime and I don't really care for it, honestly, but I think this is a great opportunity to do a Poppy Playtime redesign video. So I'm taking this amazing sketch from Minx and I'm using it to redesign my own Pianosaurus. And if you enjoy this video and you want more redesigns of other horror characters, then just let me know in the comments below. Now, before we actually get on with the video, I'd like to shout out every single entry that got submitted to this contest, because all of them are really good, and I honestly had a really hard time choosing one. So I want to give everyone an equal opportunity and shout everyone out. So first of all, we have Springtrap Chantel with this hilarious depiction of Jumbo Josh in a dunce hat in detention, which is quite amusing. Then we have Dotes and Stuff Animations with this really cool Minecraft illustration with an adorable sniffer, an adorable cat, and I just love this one. The final Shockdown comes in with this really cool sketch of BioLizard from Sonic. I don't know much about Sonic, but BioLizard is a really cool design, and I was on the verge of choosing this one, honestly, I really was. Leftyfnafz comes in with an awesome puppet sketch. I really love the expression on her in this one, it's so cute. Her tat screen comes in with this really cool dragon-like creature. It's like a lindworm dragon, it's really cool. You don't see lindworms very often, and I absolutely love it. Ender Snails comes in with this really cool sketch of their family, and honestly, the context behind this one is just really wholesome. Leaf Haynes has this really cool sketch of loads and loads of cats all together. A big group of warrior cats. I used to be a huge warrior cats fan, and I still kind of am, but yeah, this one is really cool as well. Dragonite comes in with this really cool detailed sketch of Xenomorph. I don't know much about Alien, but that is really cool. I love the detail in it. Again, another one that I was really close to picking. But of course, finally, we have Minx with this Pianosaurus sketch, the one that I ended up choosing. So congratulations to Minx for winning this contest, and thank you to everyone else who joined the contest. All of your entries are absolutely amazing, and if you're interested in joining more contests or giveaways, then you could join my Discord server, which is in the description below. Now let's get on with the drawing. So since I'm making this into a redesign, I needed to edit the sketch around a little bit first. First thing I did was change the angle of the tail, mainly because it just let me fill the canvas up a bit better with the angle of it being downwards rather than up. And then I also edited the claws and the legs position a little bit, just so that it could more fit into the perspective and background that I was thinking of here. And yes, unlike my other redesigns, I am doing a background for this one, mainly because it is a contest prize as well, and I don't want to just do like a half-assed no background piece, transparent background. I want to do something properly for the winner of this contest. The background was basically going to be the sort of area where Pianosaurus apparently dies in whatever chapter he's in. I don't know anything about Poppy Playtime. I just had to look up like a cutscene of Pianosaurus and then took a screenshot of where he is, so yeah, that's what the background is. Mainly just the floor. And I started with the background so that I could really get the posing for Pianosaurus correct. Not much really to say about the background, no. I mostly utilise paint tool size line work system, where you can either use a line work layer, or you could do what I was doing here, which is put one point down and then hold shift in order to do a completely straight line. And that's pretty much how I did this. I did just completely straight lines using this shift method, erase where it needed erasing, kept everything really nice and uniform, and really nailed home the sort of metal industrial feel of it. Lining Pianosaurus is where I really started to think about how I was going to change the design up. And honestly, as I was going, there wasn't much I could think of to change. Usually I look at these sort of designs in these mascot horror games, and I can see loads of areas where they can be improved. But Pianosaurus is one of the few that I actually looked at and I thought, this is not half bad. Maybe I'm biased because I really love dinosaurs, but I think he's quite cool. The main change I made is I wanted him to look a bit more organic. I did have to sort of Google the Poppy Playtime lore a little bit, and I learned there's this sort of initiative where they take their toys and they turn them into real things, real creatures, and Pianosaurus is one of those toys. So I thought that making him look a bit more organic would actually work better there, because the in-game model still looks quite plastic. I don't know if it's meant to be like that, if they are just meant to be, you know, scaled up versions of the toys that are alive. But to me, I think I prefer the idea of them being more organic and have actual flesh and stuff. I think that makes it a lot more creepy. So in lining, I added scales. I only lined in really big scales that are going to be really defined. The rest of the scales will come in later in texturing. I also changed up his mouth. I wanted it to really have gums showing. So he has this really big wide smile, his lips are curled upwards, and you can see the gums, which makes it a lot more organic. Now, there are other changes to the design that I made later on. For now, I actually mostly followed the sketch that I was given. And as I coloured, I had more ideas for him, so later on I added more. There was one other change I made right now though. I did have to Google a bit about Pianosaurus, and I saw on the wiki it said that he had different types of dinosaur in him. A lot of them that they listed I couldn't see myself. I mainly just saw a theropod dinosaur really. I mean, it was saying things like the spikes on its back are from a Stegosaurus. I really don't think it is, because the Stegosaurus has plates rather than spikes. Or it was saying that it has the horns of a Triceratops. Again, I don't think they're really Triceratops horns. They're not quite the right shape. They're not in the right position. But one thing I did agree with was it saying about having Therizinosaurus in it. A Therizinosaurus, or otherwise known as a tickle chicken as I like to call them, because Ark has ruined me. They're the two-legged bird-like ones with the really, really long claws. So I decided to make his claws longer. Definitely able to do more damage with them. But other than that, I couldn't really see the other dinosaurs that were listed. Maybe a bit of Platysaurus with a neck, but other than that, to me, he's just a theropod dinosaur. Not necessarily a T-Rex, but just like a generic theropod dinosaur. In lining, I also made sure to add these extra lines that define where the flesh will be. You know, when you look at reptiles, lizards in general, and the sort of mainstream depiction of dinosaurs, they have sort of slightly loose wrinkled skin in areas. So I was going to make sure to really depict that with the texturing and the shading and the line work. All of it coming together to make it look a lot more organic. Now in colouring, I went with my usual sort of theory of always having the colours be slightly more dull and desaturated. Bright, vibrant colours don't work in horror. Maybe in a really, really specific setting they will. But usually having sort of more dull colours and something that will blend better into the sort of moody atmosphere of the game works a lot better. So I made his greens a lot more dull, I made his really white piano areas a lot more dull. His spike colours I still kept fairly colourful, but again I just slightly desaturated them so that it doesn't look like this really vibrant out of place thing. So you may remember me saying in my last video with the FNAF Dead by Daylight artwork that there are things that I wanted to change about how I go about making my art. And one of those things was actually adding the lighting before I do the texturing. Now this is because I find sometimes I do all this texturing and it looks really good, and then I add in the lighting and the lighting actually covers up a lot of the texturing I've done, and therefore the piece just looks flat again. And this is a big problem I had in that last video. So I thought if I add in the lighting now, then I can see where these darker areas are going to be, or where the areas where definition isn't going to be as visible, where that's going to be. So that I could do my texturing around the lighting and really know where areas are going to pop top and where I can really focus the texture in, rather than spending all this time doing these little details and just having it not be visible in the end. And I think I'm getting ill because I'm trying to talk right now and I'm like, so sorry if I sound weird. As for his texturing, it was going to be mainly defining the wrinkles in the skin and all the scales. Now initially I was only going to do scale textures where I'd actually put the lines of the scales, but in the end I actually decided to torture myself and I put scales over his entire body, and that took me about 3 days straight to do, and by the end of it I think my hand was ready to drop off. I was in so much pain. But I tell you what, I think the results speak for themselves. I think it looks great personally. While doing the scales, I obviously had a lot of time to think more about his design, and that's why I decided to change a few things. I decided to add screws and rivets to the piano parts. I did this because I wanted it to look like the piano parts had actually been attached to him, they've been screwed into his flesh, that they are metal mechanical parts that probably weren't there when he first hatched or whatever, and they were implanted into him. The other thing I changed was I broke the piano teeth a bit more. From what I read about him is that he does eat, but I couldn't see any way that his mouth could open. So I thought about the idea that the first time he opened his mouth, he had to do it by completely snapping his teeth. Each piano key had to be snapped in half for him to be able to open his mouth and eat, and some of them have also completely snapped off. So I added that idea in as well by cracking all the piano teeth. With all the texturing finally done and my hand pretty much having fallen off, it was time to finish up the lighting. And I'm so glad I'd already sort of laid out the lighting beforehand, because that meant all I had to do was really refine it a bit. Just add slightly darker shadows and harsher highlights where they were needed. And it just really helped define areas and make the whole piece pop. The other thing I did, I added a sort of dust texture in the air, and I added blood. And I added blood running from where these screws are going into his flesh, just to show that it's not meant to be there, it's actually drilled into his flesh, it hurts, and to emphasise the pain that he might be in. And I also specifically added a lot more blood around the mouth as well, because gums bleed a lot, and I think in game he has blood around his mouth anyway, so yeah. And the final bit of blood was a blood splatter on the sign, just because, I don't know, I thought it looked kind of cool. And there is my Pianosaurus redesign. More so just tweaking some things rather than a full redesign, but I'm really happy with how it turned out. Huge thank you to Minx for submitting this amazing sketch, and congratulations for winning the contest. Let me know down below what you think of this art, and what horror characters you'd like to see me redesign next. A huge thank you to my first ever Patreon, Final Shockdown. Thank you so much for subscribing to my Patreon. If you are interested in supporting me further in the future, then check out my Patreon, which will be linked in the description below. Anyways guys, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, maybe leave a like and subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. And I hope to see all of you wonderful people in the next video. Bye!